Micah was only a fresh hatchling when the humans first arrived, hovering in orbit over our homeworld. At first, the highest response was fear and panic. What were these beings from another world here for? Micah especially remembers the voices on the vidnet crying they were here to wipe their entire race out, and they should strike first. Even back then, Micah knew those voices were driven by fear. What only exasperated the situation was the language barrier. Attempts to communicate between the species were mostly failures. The only message that was successfully translated was mostly garbled, but Micah remembered her entire family watching as the Queen read aloud what had been made known. Come. We mean harm. These few words only added fuel to the fire. Voices were screaming in terror. The warrior caste all declared they should strike now before these humans could prepare for their assault. Others tried to be the voice of reason and stated that they should await the full translation. It is the unfortunate reality that voices of fear are far louder than voices of reason. It was for this reason war was declared. Every hive mobilized this entire warrior caste. Micah, along with the other juveniles alongside the non-military castes, were all ushered to the deepest depths of the hive tunnels. It was here they waited, and here the fear pheromones grew in density. All watched on screens as the orbital strike forces launched their attack. All felt despair as they were all shot from the sky as if they were naught but paper planes to the enemy's fire. It was then a new message arrived for the invaders. Please, fight. We want countless deaths. It was a clear declaration. The holy caste declared it was the Shumagarov, the end of days. Micah could only huddle in her little corner of the cavern, knowing her birth-givers were likely amongst those who had been killed in the assault. It was then the queens of the remaining hives formed an alliance and released the chemical food stocks to enable all castes to become warriors. Such measures were only ever done in the most dire straits. Only the juveniles would be left unchanged, to allow a chance of the future. Days passed in the blink of an eye. The whole cavern shook with the ferocity of the combat above. Watching on the screens, Micah could see the human warrior caste fighting claw to claw with her own kind. Both were losing lives, both shedding blood. Micah could only wonder, though, was this really necessary? It was a month into the battle that one of the few remaining Mindcast finally translated the messages. It was here all the Vel knew they had committed a grave wrong, one that would be hard to undo. Micah could remember the Ashen Queen reading the full messages, the very same messages that had ignited the war. We come in peace. We mean you no harm. It was then the Queen read the second message with such deep shame that all of the Vel felt it. Please, do not fight. We do not want countless deaths. It was here the Queen announced she would try to broker peace. Though many of the few remaining felt such a thing was impossible, the humans seemed almost too adept at warfare. Many hive cities were already rubble. Millions of lives were lost, and worst of all, the humans had also lost many of their kind. It was the opinion that, like the Vel, the humans would not forgive the wrongful deaths and seek total annihilation of those responsible, though the Queen decided to try rather than fade into the night as the one responsible for her race's destruction. The message was sent, and the remaining warrior caste was withdrawn back to the last hive city, all present prepared for the last great assault. For fire and death to rain from the sky as it had in all the cities before, but no such death came. The humans sent a new message. We accept your surrender. The Queen read those words, and like puppets with their strings cut, all collapsed as the tension of the moment was finally gone. Cheers and prayers to the many-faced god went out that day. Micah was firmly among them. It was then the worries and fears began to pile right back up again. The humans would no doubt desire terms favourable to them. They would seek retribution. Micah had heard from her uncle, a royal guard, the Queen was prepared to sacrifice her life to appease the humans. But the most surprising thing happened. Nothing. No retribution, no outrageous demands. The humans' ambassador announced peace would be kept so long as the Vel kept it. So ended that horrific chapter of the Vel history. What followed, though, was beyond the imagination of any sane being. The humans offered to aid them, in rebuilding, in repairing what they had destroyed. It was common sense to let the defeated lick its wounds and rebuild. The humiliation and scars were a reminder of the dominant one. But these humans were different. Looking out at a city far more resplendent than any that had existed before it, Micah could see humans and Vel walking side by side. The horrors of the past were just that, nothing more than the past. Turning to look at the human ambassador, Micah felt compelled to ask, Human, It has always puzzled me why your race offered to help us when we wrongly attacked and killed your kind. The human seemed surprised by the sudden question. Then, with a practiced motion, he stroked his beard. Micah knew this to mean he was in thought. Why did we help you rebuild despite the bloodshed? The human asked in return. Micah nodded her head, mimicking a positive human response she had learned. Well, okay. We humans have an old fable. You know what a fable is, right? Micah nodded in response. Okay, the story is named The North Wind and the Sun. The story starts with Mr. Sun and Mr. Wind arguing over who is stronger. They argue and argue and argue, but they realize they aren't getting it anyway. So they decide to hold a competition to see who is strongest. Was it glorious single combat? No, Micah. You see, they noticed a human traveller with a coat. They decide whoever can get the traveller's coat off first is the strongest. So Mr. Wind blows with all his might, but the traveller just tightens up his coat and resists the force of the wind. Then it's Mr. Sun's turn. Did Mr. Sun ignite the traveller with his rays of fire? No, Micah, but kind of close if a bit morbid. No, Mr. Sun shines softly and makes the traveller warm. Warm enough, he takes off his coat willingly. Thus, Mr. Sun won. I still do not see the connection to why you aid us, Micah asked, tilting her head in confusion. The moral of the story is you can win with kindness rather than force. We humans, by our very nature, are empathetic. It's why we treat yesterday's enemy as today's friend. Because with kindness and a little help, we can have a deeper friendship. Fascinating. Please tell me more of these fables and their meanings, Micah asked, leaning in eagerly. I'll give you my daughter's book on fables. I'm sure you enjoy them, the human ambassador replied, with a light chuckle.